decided to take on a new project. You want to set that up, and then we'll be able to go into.
This is a story that I read. I really have been very much influenced and inspired, and I don't know. I fell in love with reading, in my, probably when I was 11, 12, 13, and I would kind of devour writers. I'd find a writer whose work I really liked, and then I would want to read everything that they've ever written. And probably around 17 or 18 years of age, I came upon Carson McCullers, and the first thing I read of hers was The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, which was also made into a really, really great film with Alan Arkin, probably in the early 60s. So but it was not a film that I knew. And then I read everything of hers I could get my hands on. I read A Member of the Wedding and A Clock Without Hands and Ballad of Zat Cafe, and I got a hold of her collected stories, and I started going through the collected stories, and I came upon this little story. It's 11 pages long, and it's just a very unusual story. I mean, she has her stories, her short stories are very diverse. They go off in so many different directions, but this is a very unusual story of hers, and it just grabbed my heart. And I kept this story with me for years and years, and I would read it and reread it, and I used to even pull it out from my bookcase when friends would come and visit me, and I would say, "You want to hear the most beautiful short story I've ever read in my life?" And I would read this story. So when I never really thought I would direct a film. I thought, it's too complicated. I, having grown up through my adult life being on a lot of film sets and working with a lot of different directors and watching directors do what they do, I think that my takeaway from that was like, this is way too complicated. I loved being able to be the actor on the project and enter the project and be done with the project. And I watched many, many first-time directors really struggle and really panic and really, have to juggle so many balls in the air. And I love directing in the theater, but I thought, I don't think it's really something I want to try my hand at. But I had a friend who I had directed a play in a theater of his in New York, and it had gone really well, and he just kept nudging me. He kept saying, why don't you direct a film? And if you did direct a film, what would it be? And finally I said to him, the only thing I can think of is A Tree, a Rocket Cloud, which is this short story I love. And he read it, and then he said, I think this would make the most beautiful film. And all of a sudden, I felt like a part of me thinking, why not? Why not take this leap of faith and challenge myself and go ahead and try to do something like direct a film. And I felt like if I were going to do it's, as you'll see, it's three main characters. There's a few other characters in it as well, but three main speaking roles, and it for the most part takes place in one location. And I thought, it just seemed like the perfect challenge for a first-time director. I think I always was afraid of jumping into a feature film for the first time, and it sort of seemed like jumping off the high board. So this for me was like, jumping off the side of the pool. I'm like, just doing a kind of beautiful something that means a great deal to me, something that is fairly simple, and so I love the message of this story in this film, so it means a lot to me to share it with people.
And speaking of which, I think we're going to do that right now, so if you want to grab your seat,
okay.
and we'll present A Tree, a Rock, a Cloud.